Hey, what's up guys, Ruff here. So today's situation can be best described in many different ways. How it started versus how it's going, you reap what you sow, or even the classic, you mess around and you find out. We're of course referring to a situation involving a VTuber who has a long history of going after other people's sponsorships, now losing a sponsorship themselves. Now a lot of people will not feel sorry for you when that comes around to bite you. But anyways, we're talking about Anna Valens. This is someone we've talked about before, especially a few months ago, when they launched a life ruination campaign against the VTuber Kirsha. They are a journalist here, and they made multiple articles going after Kirsha, accusing them of all of the ists and phobes they could think of, while actively targeting her sponsorships in an attempt to get those sources of income removed from Kirsha. Now, today we're talking about a different sponsor, the one that Anna was trying to team up with, Waifu Wares. It's a smaller company. As you can see, they make all kinds of different VTuber and anime related merch. Now, Anna, earlier yesterday, announced this on Twitter, saying, "Very proud to announce I am now an official affiliate partner with Waifu Wares UK," and use the code, blah, 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 blah. Now, a lot of people looked at this and they started sharing many different things that Anna has posted over the years and basically saying, do you want to work with this individual who also has a history of going after other people's sponsorships? A lot of the things people are sharing are things that are just open and available. Like if you remember from the last time we talked about this individual, they have this audio clip that a lot of people, probably millions at this point, have heard of, where as a trans person, they share their fantasy about rounding up cis girls and then putting them into breeding facilities to abuse them over and over again. Now, I've seen a lot of this person's defenders saying, oh, it's just, it's rage bait, it's an edgy joke, or it's an edgy fantasy, whatever. But keep in mind, Anne is the same person who only in April of this year released an article trying to accuse VLore, the VTuber group, of catering to pedophiles, because one of their VTubers has a lolly model. So clearly they're trying to justify their own fantasies on one end, but trying to cancel other people over fictional content. Like, it's very, very inconsistent. And then we have this right here, which none of the supporters of Anna will ever address in any sort of a way. Back in 2020, during the heights of Fall Guys, they made an entire article documenting their experience with this game, where they rigged an adult toy on themselves in a way that would make it activate whenever they came into contact with other players. Now, right off of the bat, you're putting other players in a situation where they're not consenting to sexual activity, right? And you go a step further, this is Fall Guys, a game that has a very large child base of players. So you're not just putting random players into this disgusting situation, you're doing this to children as well. Now, of course, a lot of people were sharing these publicly available things to Waifu Wares early yesterday morning, and it seems like they made a decision very quickly. But during those hours, Anna made this tweet mocking someone, basically saying it's for stuff like that you lose journalism gigs and other future opportunities, where they dismissed that, saying, "No one in media actually cares about all the random Twitter nonsense that goes on here. People look at the crazy YouTube videos about me and immediately assume that I have crazy obsessive haters, not that I'm an evil and bad person." Understand, this person went on a life ruination campaign for weeks and honestly for months at this point, trying to rip away sponsors from Kirsha, trying to cancel her, and doing this to other people as well. And you can see they're doing the classic tactic of dismissing all the criticism against them as crazy. It's all just crazy. There's no reason to check into it. But they claim no one cares about what happens around here. Well, apparently Waifu Wares does. And in the hours after announcing their affiliate, Anna was let go. They say this: "We would like to clarify that we are not affiliated with Anna Valens, and we're unaware of any past events or situations they may have been involved in. When reviewing potential participants, we base our checks on recent activity and profiles rather than conducting an extensive deep dive into historical matters." Now, if you look around, they would try to clarify what's going on here later, a couple hours after VTubers' announcement, sharing that they were invited to join the collaboration program at 10:45 a.m. yesterday, and they were given a code to use, and people could get a discount from the website. Looking through VTubers' various applications, they said they were an affiliate, so if they were an affiliate, they just had a code, basically. But it sounds like they were going to the next step, possibly getting some merch or whatever. But the way this company, a lot of smaller companies work, is basically you got to kind of do all the groundwork. You have to pay for your own arts. They're just manufacturing, whether it's a shaker or something, they're just putting it on there for you and then shipping it to people. So this is like a very kind of low grade sort of collaboration here, where it's really mostly on the person trying to work with the company, and the company's just kind of putting it all together. And looking through their application process, they pretty much, like they said, just check your main social media accounts, and they check like the most recent activity, which can lead to a lot of issues, as you can see. But that's the framework we're working with today. And this tweet really kind of sums up how people are feeling about this largely, where it's like, you know, you went after people for a very long time trying to get their sponsors removed for so-called problematic behavior, and now it's turned around and happened to you. Going after sponsors is lame. I think everyone can agree on that when it comes to the overwhelming majority of matters. But if you're someone who engages in this practice, if you try to ruin people's sponsorships, nobody's going to bat an eye when it comes around and happens to you. And that's exactly what's going on here with this situation. I think it's very clear. Now we look to Kirsha, right? So this is someone who's been subjected to this life ruination campaign by Anna for a long time, and they must feel pretty validated, because the articles on Vice made by Anna included stuff like this, not only making wild accusations and very uncharitable conclusions about Kirsha, calling them basically every ist and phobe they could think of, they also directly went after her sponsors, including GamerSupps, for example, even putting it in the title, framing this whole thing is basically, GamerSupps, why do you have this bigot in your midst, and why are you supporting them? And they're trying very hard. And you can see, even on Twitter, they constantly wipe their tweets or switch accounts, but they made a whole detailed guide, not just on Twitter, but on Blue Sky as well, showing people how to go after Kirsha's sponsors. I mean, this is like so blatant, where they say, you know, here's what you got to do. Even if you're a creator with GamerSupps, for example, you have to go around and warn creators about Kirsha's politics, leverage connections with GamerSupps for an answer, and consider moving away from the brand long term. So it's a very active effort. In fact, when that really wasn't working with GamerSupps, they went the next step, and they started trying to put pressure on GamerSupps and to cancel Kirsha, not with Kirsha's own actions anymore, but the actions of people they view as a supporter of Kirsha. That's how desperate things got. And the obsession never ended, because this went on for months. In fact, only 6 days ago, on August 5th, they made a long thread claiming that Kirsha's now been dropped by GamerSupps. Here's their proof, their supposed proof, saying, speaking of which, I noticed recently that Kirsha's GamerSupps code isn't in her bio on Twitter anymore, and she seemed to focus more on promoting her other sponsors on social media. I don't believe she's posted a GamerSupps promotion since May, which is odd for a partner. Well, as someone who also works with multiple sponsors, like, you tend to rotate. So going a couple months without promoting something from a company is like not that big of a deal. But anyways, down here they say, I am living rent-free in her head. Main character syndrome. I don't think that's what's happening. Because she's just big mad, or is she upset because GamerSupps is slowly and quietly removing her from its affiliate program, and she ultimately feels like she's lost her support? It's an open question. I still don't know. Something seems off. And they say all this stuff, that her emblem was pulled and her promo posts have disappeared, and also they're retweeting fans about it. But anyways, but also they say down here, after saying, oh, well, the panel's gone from Twitch, but her code still works. I don't really think that's great proof that someone's sponsorship has been ripped away when their creator code still works? I don't know. But I think there's a very simple explanation for all of this. It's probably to protect gamer subs, just like probably a lot of people she works with, because maniacs will try to use that against her and try to go after the companies and relentlessly harass them and tag them in articles and tweets. Sound familiar? Well, that's exactly what's happening here. And if you keep going deeper, right, it's all just ridiculous. I mean, remember the time when this all happened with the gamer subs crusade? I mean, Kirsha was hit with real life threats where she had to literally leave her house, and that's always overlooked. But people focus so much on gamer subs and what's going on here. I don't think a lot of people really understand the depths all of this went, but someone's got to be feeling real cathartic about all of this. The person who's relentlessly targeting them over and over again picked a fight, started to lose, and then tried to play the victim over the past couple of months.
Hey man, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Goddamn, that's fast. That's crazy. You get what you fucking deserve. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Imagine the life you could be living if you just hadn't tried to censor people and financially ruin them. No one would care. Imagine.
So now let's return to some more statements made by Anna regarding the situation. So as you can see, they're trying to do a spin. They're trying to spin the narrative where this was an amicable separating of the two parties, and that there's this harassment campaign going on where Anna's actually the victim once again. And you can see this post was made at 3:30 p.m., where they say since a couple folks asked, Waifu Wears was a bit alarmed by some of the hate sent our way. We talked and decided to end the partnership for the time being. Now, of course, right around that time at 3:53, so just 23 minutes later, we start seeing posts like this, saying, there goes any interest in them. Anyone currently partnered, I suggest you reconsider your partnership, as they have shown that they'll kneel to anti-trans radicals. Yes, they're once again trying to label this situation as an act of transphobia or supporting anti-trans radicals. They know what they're doing here. There couldn't possibly be a legitimate reason to let go of someone like Anna. It must be because they're trans, according to individuals like this. And they go on further in their replies to say, why would I have an interest in a company either as a sponsor or a fan when it could be ripped away from me because people spammed 5-year-old rage bait to them? Now, it's not lost on me that individuals like Anna would gleefully use older tweets and posts by people like Kirsha, for example, to try to go after their sponsors and things like that. But referring to all of this as rage bait is rich. Like, you think this is rage bait, by the way? The Fall Guys situation, do you think that's simply rage bait? No, I think any reasonable person looks at this and understands how disgusting this was. This was not just rage bait. It put children in a situation where Anna was using these adult toys that were rigged to get satisfaction off of interacting with their characters. If you don't see how disturbing that is and you think it's just rage bait, I'm concerned about you. But of course, we have other people coming out and trying to dispute this whole transphobia narrative that's being spread, where this VTuber said, I've worked with Waifu Wears and I've had nothing but the best experience. There are less than 5 staff in that company managing 100 plus talents in their cups. They work with several trans creators and have a very LGBTQ plus friendly Discord. Please support them. Now, of course, people who are trying to run with this narrative, they'll ignore an actual experience shared by someone who's worked with the company and will instead try to infer the reasons why they let go of this partnership. But there's a lot more irony coming out from people who are closely associated with Anna, this Nyara individual, replying to Waifu Wears just 8 minutes after that first, or the most latest post we saw from Anna, saying, you dropped her because you got pressured by a bunch of transphobic people who wanted to retaliate against her for coming after, in quotes, Kirsha. F you. Well, I definitely consider making multiple articles and tagging sponsors and trying to engage in life ruination is in fact coming after Kirsha. If you think that is somehow not a big deal, I don't know what to tell you. But you start looking at people who are sharing stuff like this. Here's another one. A now deleted quote saying, "I'd love to see what they found except for that 5-year-old breeding farm rage bait post that transphobes over and over again used to slander her." And of course, is this also rage bait? It seems like it's not just the breeding facilities audio that some people are paying attention to. Please explain why this is not something that is significant or to be paid attention to. But of course, you see the kind of individuals saying this stuff. The irony is palpable. This was made back in March when they're referring to the whole thing going on with Kirsha, saying, why is it bad to let a sponsor know what their partners are saying? Well, that seems a bit hypocritical. So we can't talk about the breeding facilities. We can't talk about the Fall Guys article. But when it comes to Kirsha, it's open season. Anything they say, well, we should let the sponsors know. And of course, looking further, you can see how they gleefully responded to that thread on August 5th, where Anna claimed Kirsha lost her Gamer Supps sponsorship. You can see Nyara saying, "I thought she was making bank," referring to Kirsha claiming she made over $160,000 from her Gamer Supps merch. And then you got Anna saying all that while deep down knowing it was over is crazy, a very wild assumption. And then they interact saying total Foxu victory, complete succubus success. So gleefully sharing their excitement about Kirsha losing sponsorships. But all of a sudden now, if this happens back to Anna, it's totally unfair. It's transphobic. It's giving in to the mob. The irony is through the roof. But of course, there's been a lot going on with the Waifu Wares account. You can see they went private around this time, and don't harass this company. I think there's someone who they don't have enough measures in place in terms of filtering who they're allowing into their programs. I don't think that's anything too unique, but of course that's the way they have it set up. But hopefully they learn something from this experience and dig a little deeper on who they're working with. But there's one last long post from Anna saying, "I hope we can all agree that Waifu Wares, what they went through today was completely unacceptable. No company should face a harassment campaign of such nature. If you must target someone, target me, not them. Many unrelated creators can and will be affected by such measures." What a savior complex right here. "The decision to end the partnership was one that WW suggested and I agreed to in order to protect the company and its creators. I do not believe other VTubers and businesses in the English VTubing scene should have to suffer because of my harassers. I hope it is seen as a sign that there is much work to do with overcoming harassment campaigns in the English VTubing scene. I will admit today's circumstances were less than ideal and things could have been handled better, but Waifu Wares did not make any decisions under ill will. Small companies not necessarily clued into everything that happens in VTubing, and in the end, Waifu Wares has every right to decide yay or nay on brand fits. I wish the team the best, as well as all the VTubers that work with them." Yes, definitely playing the role of the victim here. Very different tone when it comes to how they lost a sponsorship versus how they view others should lose sponsorships for their so-called problematic behavior. But you can see they're trying to be the hero here, basically saying they're taking one on the chin for Waifu Wares. But in reality, we can see the people they associate with openly accusing the company of transphobia, making this narrative that they fired people to fulfill the desires of these anti-trans radicals, that this is an unfair decision, when in reality, they're also trying to say, well, they're a company, they can do whatever they want. I don't know. It just seems like a giant mess, and they're trying to shine this in a light way, but it's not looking too great overall. Classic effing around and finding out. You want to go after people's sponsorships, you can't really complain when it comes back and happens to you. But anyways, that's going to do it for this video. As always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.